All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping right into one of the biggest questions imaginable. What happens when we die? And we're going to explore a really unique perspective on divine justice, using the original, unadulterated text from Chapter 8 of Allan Kardec's Heaven and Hell. This is straight from the source.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle the big dilemma of the afterlife. Then, we'll get into this idea of a new science of the soul. After that, we'll look at the actual laws of divine justice that come out of it, and we'll wrap up with what this means for you and me, how we're the architects of our own destiny.
Okay, let's dive right in. Section 1, the dilemma of the afterlife. This really gets to the heart of why old answers just don't seem to cut it for the modern mind.
So, here's the question that's haunted humanity forever. What awaits us after death? You know, for centuries, the answers were pretty much set in stone, based on faith, based on dogma. But this chapter argues that as we as a species started thinking more critically, more scientifically, those old answers they started to feel a bit flimsy. People started wanting something more than just promises. They wanted something that made sense to their reason.
And this really sets up a major clash, a showdown between two completely different ways of thinking. You've got the dogmas of imagination, personal theories, preconceived ideas, things that are just handed down. And on the other side, you have the observation of facts. This is about evidence, about testimony from lots of different sources that all line up. One leads to doubt, the other to a real, rational understanding.
So, that brings us to our next section. If the old dogmas aren't the answer, what is? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The text lays out a method for a new kind of science, a science of the soul.
And the key idea here is that this isn't based on one person's vision. Think about it. A single revelation could just be a dream, right? An illusion. No. This approach is about drawing conclusions from thousands of different reports. It's about data, a huge body of evidence.
And the core of this whole method is something called the universality of the teaching. This is basically the scientific standard for this field. A principle is only seen as valid if it's confirmed over and over again by tons of independent communications from all over the world, all saying the same thing. It's like peer review, but for spiritual truth.
So look at the criteria here. You've got countless sources from all over the globe. The intermediaries are independent of each other. The information they receive has to be in agreement. Critically, no single person is the special, privileged source. It's a system where anyone, in theory, can observe and verify the results. It's decentralized and based on consistency.
All right, so with that method in place, let's get to the good stuff. What does this science actually tell us? This brings us to Section 3, the laws of divine justice. These are the principles of cause and effect for the soul. And the first big takeaway is a total game changer for the idea of punishment. The text says, punishment is always the natural consequence of the fault committed. The spirit suffers from the very evil that it has done. So get this, it's not some external judge pointing a finger. It's an internal consequence. It's a natural law like gravity. You create the cause, you experience the effect.
So if the suffering comes from within, how do you fix it? Well, there's a path. It's a three-step process. First comes repentance. That's the genuine desire to change. Then comes expiation, which is about facing the consequences, learning from them, and improving. And finally, there's reparation, and this is huge. It means actively doing good to repair the harm you've done.
Okay, but this leads to a massive question, one that really separates this way of thinking from a lot of traditional dogmas. Can this suffering last forever?
And the text makes this incredibly important distinction between absolute eternity and relative eternity. Absolute eternity is what we usually think of. Endless, no hope, a final judgment. But the text argues for a relative eternity. This is a state of suffering that feels endless to the person in it because they don't see a way out. But, and this is the key, it's a condition that can end. It ends when the spirit chooses to change and progress.
And there's this amazing analogy in point 23 that just makes it all so clear. It says spirits in this state aren't like convicts in a prison. They're more like patients in a hospital. They're suffering, yes, but they always hold the hope of a cure. See the difference? It's not about revenge. It's about healing. It's a tough medicine, but it's meant to cure the spirit. And all of this leads to our final section, which is just so empowering. It's all about becoming the architect of your own destiny. Because if all this is true, it puts the power squarely in our own hands.
And it all starts from this one foundational idea, an equal starting point for everyone.
According to point 25, divine justice is built on absolute equality. Every single spirit is created with the same potential, starting from the very same point.
Think about what this means. All spirits start equal. No one is created more gifted or privileged. The path to happiness is open to literally everyone. And the law isn't some external book. It's written in our own conscience. So happiness isn't a favor somebody grants you. It's the reward for your own work.
And this quote from point 25 just says it all. Each one is free to work or to do nothing for his own advancement. He who strays from the path or loses time delays his arrival and can only blame himself. Wow, so free will is the engine. We are always, always in the driver's seat of our own destiny.
So, what does this all mean? It completely shifts the focus, doesn't it? It's not about fearing some future judgment. It's about recognizing the incredible power of our choices right here, right now. So that leaves us with one final thought. If your destiny is truly in your hands, what are you going to build today? Thanks for joining this explainer.